So in my previous video, I talked about the benefits of shadow work, why it's so important and how it helps you to grow and improve your relationships. So do go watch that if you haven't seen that already. But in this video, I want to talk about how the lack of shadow work will stop you from truly seeing and exploring the world. Oftentimes when we avoid situations, avoid certain people, and avoid almost circumstances, we find ourselves living in a world that's smaller. So instead of it being beautiful and big and bright, we end up seeing it as a small confined space. And that small confined space often has us stressed out because we're not fully able to express ourselves in all areas of our lives. So let's talk about the triggers that stop you from completely showing up and owning your space. Now, lots of the work I do around visibility is about representation. There's certain people that you might think are problematic in their approach to dealing with other people. So perhaps they'll use derogatory terms, perhaps they'll just be offensive, perhaps they won't be necessarily very inclusive. And so your knee-jerk reaction is probably like, okay, I'm gonna push through and own my space. But after a while, you having to push through and fight against that type of environment will keep you drained. So here's my solution instead. My solution instead isn't just to ignore it. My solution instead is to not get triggered by it. Because there's always going to be people around you in your environment that are going to be ignorant. And the more you make your environment smaller because of those ignorances, the less freer you are. And so whenever you are triggered, as in there's an emotional response to what somebody says, how somebody behaves, you have the opportunity to not have an emotional reaction to it, but instead respond instead of react. Now, you're probably thinking this is easier said than done. Not really. You just need the right tools in order for you to be effective at it. And it doesn't mean that it's going to happen overnight, especially if there's some deep wounds going on. The point of this work, though, is to make sure that you expand and instead of contract, because oftentimes that's what happens. You're contracting because you don't want to feel being in uncomfortable situations with people that just don't know how to behave. Now, this could be in a space of a LinkedIn group. It could be in the space of a Facebook group. It could be in the space of just everyday life. Because wherever you go, there's going to be people that just don't know how to behave. And so when you're doing your shadow work, it's about spotting those triggers. So one easy, quick way to do it is obviously spot the triggers that leave you with an emotional response. And then start to journal on those things. Start to actually have a conversation with your highest wisdom about how you can start to heal that, to reduce that feeling. Because we know racism, bigotry, prejudice, and everything in between that isn't going to be solved overnight. But you've got a business to run. Or you're probably in an organization where you're changing the culture of that business. The point of this is, in order for you to do your work, in order to be visible, in order for you to be heard in that business, in your business, the triggers can't dictate how you're showing up. And that's why shadow work is important. Because it's not about making yourself smaller. It's not about making your environment smaller. It's about being bigger, bringing things out to light, and truly combating that ignorance and anything else that you know is just not on, and making sure that you stand in your power without getting triggered. So if you want to know more about how this process will work for you, so that you can stand in your power and know who you truly are, so you can show up again and again in your power, then all you got to do is click the link which should be in the comments below. Thank you for watching.